When it comes to buying a camera as a content creator, there's so many options and it's easy to end up overpaying for features that you don't actually need. So in this video, I've compiled hours and even months of research to show you guys what to look for in your next camera. I'm gonna recommend the Sony FX30. I'm gonna break this video into 5 categories. First, we've got the footage quality. How does the footage look? Does it look good? Then we've got the camera body, right? Where are the buttons? Is it ergonomic? Then we've got the connectivity, right? What type of SD cards can I stick in there? What type of audio can I connect to the camera? Then we've got quality of life improvements. So that's basically like, what features does it have? Is it fun to use? And finally, the price. How much does it cost and is it worth my money? There's a few things I look for when I'm looking at footage quality. The first is the resolution. I want a camera that is at least 4K. I know, most people are watching on their phones. So if I have 4K, that lets me punch in or reframe my shot or repurpose it for maybe a vertical video without losing that much quality. The resolution in this camera is fantastic. It's actually a 6K sensor that's downscaled to 4K. So that 4K is going to be sharper than other 4K from other cameras. The next thing I want in a camera is in-body stabilization. And fortunately, this camera has 5-axis in-body image stabilization. So that means that when I'm walking around with the camera or vlogging, it's not going to look like a hurricane is happening. Now, it also has gyro stabilization, and if you put the footage into Sony's app called Catalyst Browse, it can actually use the gyro data to stabilize the footage in post. But if you're not keen on doing that in post, it also has this active steady shot mode that you can turn on, and it will crop in a bit, but it will also attempt to stabilize your footage as you're recording the video. Obviously, these stabilization features are going to work best with a lens that also has stabilization in it. And none of this is really going to replace a gimbal or a glide cam, but it's going to look pretty good. The color coming out of this camera is amazing. It lets you shoot in S-Log3, and it also has the S-Cinetone color profile, but it also lets you import LUTs so that you can monitor it on your screen, or you have the option to choose your LUT as a picture profile and bake it into the video so you don't have to bother adding the LUT in post. Now, what makes this camera so versatile is that it doesn't just shoot 8-bit, but it shoots 10-bit color. And I really love that because I edit in DaVinci Resolve and I want to be able to push and pull the colors so that it looks as good as possible. Additionally, it actually has 16-bit raw video output via the HDMI input, although few external recorders even support that level of quality. But hey, it's just good to have. The colors coming out of this camera are so good that they can actually be matched with Sony's higher-end cinema cameras. So even if you outgrow the FX30, you can still use this camera as a side angle or a behind-the-scenes camera. Now, all of this is ruined if it's grainy. This camera isn't a low-light beast, but it does have between 100 to 32,000 ISO, and more importantly, it has a dual base ISO of 800 and 2500, which again is great when you're working with the Cine EI setting. Also, very important is the dynamic range of the camera because you don't want your highlights blown out and your shadows to just disappear, right? So this camera has 14 plus stops of dynamic range with S-Log3. All right, next category. We're going to talk about the camera body. One of the first things to consider is whether the camera overheats. Now, the FX30 is one of the few Sony mirrorless cameras that actually has a fan in it. The fan is basically silent, but you can rest assured that the camera will not overheat even in a warm climate. To really guarantee this, go down to Setup 9, the power setting option, and set the auto power off temperature to high. Hopefully, you brought water on your shoot so that you don't overheat. Now, I do a lot of vlogging or shooting my own face. First of all, it has a fully articulating screen. I need to be able to see myself to make sure that I'm framed correctly. It has a front record button so that I don't have to be fiddling on the top to find the record button. And it has a front and rear tally lamp. That's like a little red light in the front that shows me, hey, you're recording. You have that peace of mind to know that you didn't accidentally miss the record button and that you're wasting all of your time. As for the ergonomics of this camera, it actually has a large grip. It has programmable buttons. It has a multi-selector joystick, which allows you to move the 495 autofocus points of this camera. And it has no flappy triangles. You know, those things that would hang off the sides and dangle and make noise when you don't have a camera strap attached. Now here's where things get interesting. This camera has a bunch of mounting points around the sides of the camera. And that's useful for a variety of things. First, you can rig up your camera. If you want to attach an external monitor straight to the camera, you can do so without buying a cage and having to deal with that. Also, you can mount the camera sideways for vertical content. And you can connect a hot shoe top handle and you can screw it in so that the top handle won't break off the camera. And finally, this is no toy. It feels like a rock and it's weather sealed. Now, this guy might be able to last in the rain for a bit. I wouldn't try it, but it's there if you need it. So the camera comes with two dual CF Express and CDXC card slots. And what that basically means, since it has two, is that you can have footage redundancy. You can set up the camera so that it copies your photos or videos to both cards simultaneously. Now, wedding photographers, professional ones, love this feature because it means that if one card goes bad or breaks, the other card still works and they haven't lost their footage. Also, this works for continuous recording, meaning that if you run out of space when you're recording a video on one card, it can go ahead and use the space on the other slot so you never stop recording. If you look on the side of the camera, you'll see a full HDMI Type A connection. Now, this allows for a clean HDMI output for external monitors and live streaming. It also has USB-C, and this has two great features. First of all, that's how you charge the camera, so fast charging. And it offers 4K up to 15 frames per second, which you won't really use. But it does have a 1080p up to 60 frames per second that you can use for your video conferencing. Now, I still recommend using your full HDMI port for live streaming. But if you're doing a Zoom call or something like that, and you don't want to have to use a capture card or make anything complicated, this is definitely the way to go. Underneath the USB-C, you'll see the micro USB input. This is not something that I use very often, but if I had an accessory like the remote commander, maybe I would use it a little more often. And then we have the audio. The audio is so important for taking great videos. And in this camera, it has a 3.5 millimeter microphone jack, which means that you can plug in your shotgun microphones and it can power those microphones if need be. Right under that, it actually has a headphone jack, so you can monitor your audio, make sure that everything sounds good. But also on the top of the camera, it has a hot shoe. And what that allows you to do is buy the optional XLR top handle, stick it into the hot shoe, and now you've got port to put in your XLR mics. It screws into the top mounting points, and it allows you to use two XLR mics or a 3.5 millimeter microphone input as well. Now, I highly recommend that you buy it when you buy the camera. Now let's talk about quality of life improvements. So this camera has a plethora of frame rates to choose from. Obviously, it can do your 4K 24, but it can also do your 4K 60, and this 4K 60 does not have any additional crop than the 24 frames per second, which is really nice to see. And this camera is capable of doing 120 frames per second at 4K. Now, mind you, you will have to deal with a 1.56 times crop, and you will need a fast card for this. But hey, it's there. It's an option. If you're willing to drop down to 1080p, you can even go to a whopping 240 frames per second. Now, this camera has a lot of great menu features and tools, right? So as for the display assist tools, it's got everything that you would expect. You have your zebras, you have your peaking, and you have importable LUTs, which I mentioned earlier. And then you have focusing. So it has eye autofocus for animals, humans, or birds. It has autofocus assist, which allows you to switch easily between auto and manual focus. And it also has focus mapping, so you can visualize that depth of field. The Sony FX30 has breathing compensation, which allows you to keep an angle of view stable even when you're moving around those focus points. It has memory recall modes, so you can hit the mode button and you can set all the settings back to a saved preset, exactly the way that you prefer to shoot. It also has a My Menu system that allows you to sort and organize and make your favorite settings more accessible. And it has a customizable function menu setting, which puts the most important features only a swipe away, and you can quickly make those changes on the fly. This camera also has the zoom rocker, and it has clear image zoom. It doesn't have a viewfinder, which is a bit of a bummer in sunlight, but it does take stills captured in the full APS-C at 6,192 by 4,128 pixels. It's a 26 megapixel camera. Something I don't think a lot of people mention is the app functionality. Sony has apps that actually connect via Bluetooth to the camera. For this camera, it actually has two. So there's the Creator app, which is open to everyone, most cameras, and it lets you do, transfer photos to your phone pretty easily, which is a nice feature to have. But it also has the Monitor and Control app. Now, this app isn't just for any camera, it's for Sony's cinema cameras. This app allows you to even change like your Cine EI modes and Cine Quick and all that, and I'm so glad that it comes compatible with the Sony FX30. Now, we've got to talk about price. These types of features tend to be in the maybe $3,000 to $3,500 range, but this camera comes in just under $2,000. So with the top handle, it costs normally around $2,200 in the United States, and you can find it on sale for just under $2,000. And without the top handle, you can find it for $1,800 or on sale for $1,600. And you might be wondering, okay, this camera looks just like the FX3. This camera has a bunch of fantastic features. Why is it so inexpensive? And the answer is that it uses an APS-C sensor. Now, there's a huge debate over whether APS-C sensor is better than full frame or which one you should pick. But honestly, ignore all of that. I'll explain what is the difference. The APS-C sensor means that it is going to have slightly less bokeh compared to a full frame equivalent at the same aperture. It also means that it's not going to do as good in low light. And it does mean that the frame, the composition, is going to be a bit more punched in. But all of that can be compensated for with wider, faster lenses. Now, the benefit to the APS-C sensor cameras is that there's a whole bunch of lenses that you can use for this camera. If you want to buy a full frame lens, you can still put it on this camera and it's going to work fantastic. But you have access to the APS-C sensor lenses, which tend to be cheaper and lighter. So it's the best of both worlds. All right, you made it to the end of the video. That's awesome. That tells me that you're the type of person that's willing to invest the time to learn more. And I think that's exactly who this camera is for. If you're just making home videos, you can use your iPhone. It'll work great. Don't spend the money. But if you want to learn about those terms that I mentioned, like focus peaking and Cine EI and S-Log3, and you want to know how professionals shoot video, then I think this camera is the perfect introduction. Welcome to the Sony Cinema lineup. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe so I can continue to be part of your filmmaking journey, and have a blessed day. Remember, Jesus loves you.